Welcome again to I Love Black People, and thank you so much for joining us. We've been blessed to have two brothers. They're going to be talking about some real issues that we're facing as a global community. It's very important that we understand that behind the headlines, there's often a story that's more compelling and oftentimes more truthful than what we see so often being promoted. And I want to do these brothers justice, so I'm going to have them introduce themselves.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM, channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.
And we're going to start, of course, with our elder, good brother Ralph. If you can introduce yourself, let our audience know where you are, and then brother Trésor.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me over. It really is a pleasure and it's an honor. My name is Ralph Chevry. I live in Haiti. As you can tell, my formative years spent it in the United States. But I'm on the board of a think tank, which we call HCSEP. It's Haitian Center for Socioeconomic Policy. We've been interviewed. You'll see us mentioned in Washington Post because they've talked to us and asked us questions. We've become somewhat of a reference for what's going on in Haiti. And we try to keep it real honest because you just said something very, very true. And I do want to convey this. A lot of things that you read in the newspapers, certainly the mainstream ones, are watered down. They're not the truth. I wouldn't say it's not the truth, but you need to know more. A lot of things are being kept. And this is an opportunity to share those things. My experience in the past few days with the coup, with the assassination of President Moise, which the world is talking about. So I lived 5 minutes from him. So we lived everything. Okay, so that's a short presentation of me, and I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, brother Ralph. All right, brother Trésor.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor. My name is Trésor Junior Kankonda wa Kankonda. That comes from the Kasai tribe in the sense of DRC. It's an honor to be here. So I'm based in South Africa. I've spent about 26 years in Africa. I went there as a child at the age of 7. And obviously I'm from Congo originally. So I've been there on the ground. I don't know if you remember Sinclair sent a picture for the first one that took place. He actually did a march a few days later to say no, stop xenophobia. So from the beginning, we've been involved. I'm an ambassador for I Love Black People. And besides work and business, I think my life purpose is to create a better world for Black people. You know, pride, install pride in Black people, protect them. You know, so that's just my aim. You know, on earth.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. And want to dive in. I think the topics we're going to really touch on is the recent incidents in Haiti, as well as what's going on in South Africa with Zuma going to prison and the fallout from that, and what the implication, who benefits, who's losing, how these things are being played out, and the context. And brother Ralph, if you could maybe lead in with what's been happening in Haiti, I think that'd be super helpful.
Well, let me tell you, to be honest, I say if anyone understands what's happening in Haiti, they're misinformed, because it is confusing. There's the whole world is involved. A lot of actors are involved, but the situation is, I live 5 minutes. I live up the mountain. Skinner knows where I live, and I lived everything from the first shots to the last ones. And I heard machine gun fire that I had never heard before. We heard explosions. We're used to hearing shots, but I actually heard explosions. And if I hadn't lived it, I would have questioned it. This is something that my wife and I, we stayed up all night. We knew something was going on. It started about 1 o'clock, and halfway through, we realized it was around the president's house, but we didn't know for sure if it had been at his place till about 3 o'clock in the morning when people were exchanging what was happening. It was an assassination. But it's obvious that it was a coup. Now we do have information that it was a coup. One of the intellectuals behind it was a doctor that was arrested just yesterday. So it's still ongoing. A lot of questions, but we really don't know if we'll ever know the truth behind it. But one thing we do know, it's very confusing, and it's here's Haiti again. You have Haitians, Americans from South Florida. Then you have Colombians, and the company's owned by Venezuelan, and they go through Panama, and then to the Dominican Republic, and then to Haiti. It's involved the whole region. It shows you how an unstable country or destable country can destabilize a whole region. And this is one of the things we've been talking about. And this is what it is. Haiti really is. We're going through tough times. Many people, when I said Haiti was Somalia in development, right now it really is, because really Haiti's a mess now. There's no police. The police has been fractioned into four. There are 4 different factions within the police. There's no security. The gangs have taken to the streets. You have over 100 gangs. They're armed to the teeth. Actually, they can walk in and take over everything because they have the firepower, and we don't have a police force in Haiti, at least not a functioning one. So it's a very tentative, fragile situation, and it's very explosive because this has been built up. This is just happened overnight. This has been going on for years. This is not something that's just happened. This should not be a surprise to anyone, especially not the international community. We've talked about it, we've mentioned it, and we've tried to address the real core, but no one's ever really addressed the real core problem. It's corruption. That's basically what it is. Everything that happens, it's corruption. And because of that, everyone talks about Haiti, the issues, but we never address that issue. And the corruption is not just in Haiti. It actually goes from Haiti to these developing countries, to Europe, to the United States. So there is an implication to a certain extent of the whole community, the whole world being involved in this situation, because the corruption, people steal the money in Haiti. Where do they drop it off? In the United States, in Europe. So it is a global issue that needs to be addressed.
So how do we, again, I think sometimes we make this conversation, of course it's local, we act local, but the global part that you just added, again, when we start talking about moving money, you can't move large sums of money without the United States, the financial infrastructure. And I'm sure when you started talking about the connection to multiple countries where folks are passing through, again, having access either to military bases and being able to move in that way. What do we say, I guess, to a U.S. audience that's a part of this conversation that may seem that this is something happening somewhere far away, but doesn't know or understand U.S. imperialism or U.S. foreign policy and the ability for these type of activities to happen? I mean, we talk about Panama, which is an ally of the United States, Colombia, and these are places, people whose armies are armed as well as trained by the United States government. I think the Venezuela threw a little twist on it, and sometimes they throw a little twist at us just to kind of like throw it off. But even seeing people being captured, again, it seems like some of these folks are not just the bad guy, but might be the fall guys, and the actual folks who are, the puppeteers putting this together might be hiding their hands. How do we take this conversation beyond the current affairs that it brings to the headlines, but actually how do we engage people into a more systemic change? How do we get more Black people involved into foreign policies of their government and realize the intersection of how we're treated domestically in America, the United States of America, excuse me, these are all the Americas, and then as well as how Black people are treated throughout the world? Is there something that we could empower our listeners to do besides just watching on corporate media?
Well, you're doing it right now. It's really information. Information is power and it's freedom. The only thing is, what's important is getting the right information and not be subject to misinformation. The thing is really to connect throughout the world. Luckily for us, there's a technology that allows us to do so. And this is a real revolution. People need to be informed. I've seen people that never really understood what corruption was and the implication of the European countries involved in it. And it always seems like, well, Haitians are this and that, or countries or Africans were all corrupt. This is what you hear. This is mainstay argument. Yeah, but they are not saying that who's benefiting from it. To give you a simple example, there was one Haitian guy who's very well known. He bought a house in Canada for like $4 million cash money. And they made a big stench about it. Well, this guy's grow up. How did he have this money? Well, guess what? He transferred the money from a Miami, Florida account. So this was not just, these are the things. It seems to be, for some reason, certain things make it through the crack. And we don't know how they do it exactly. But it's clear to us that these monies don't stay in Haiti. They're not invested in here. They're somewhere else. And there is a lack of interest, a lack of effort on the part of the U.S. as well, which I've told them that, of trying to address this issue and understand that this global illicit funding, it's a flow. And it's been defined right now as the illicit financial flow, and it flows back to the United States. That's really what it is, or Europe. It doesn't stay in third world countries. So someone's benefiting from it.
No, I definitely, again, and I think the point you made, I think sometimes we talk about the oppression we have survived and have fought and struggled through, and we don't realize, how corruption, when we talk about colonialism, that's corruption. Anytime people are literally racism, anytime you're favoring one people over the other, that's corruption. That's not a meritocracy. And I think we sometimes, and again, I'm sorry for limiting everyone on this call to this English language, but we use words that kind of obfuscate or kind of confuse people, when literally, when you're robbing people of their labor, that's corruption. And the largest and the most prolific corruption has to be clearly colonialism in many ways, and what it has done to our people for the last 500 years, and our resistance to it, and the continuation of that resistance. We've never surrendered, but there is a consequence. And I think what we're looking at are real consequences of that continued struggle. And we want to make sure that we get all our brothers and sisters involved in how to solve it. And I think what you just said about how even the flow of funds in this particular society now is such that that they're tracking us with cell phones, with all that. It's almost impossible in this surveillance society for anyone to really believe that these actions can take place without being followed. If it's unorganized crime is one thing. If it's just random act, somebody stabs their husband or a husband stabs the wife, that's a random act. But to actually plan, put the resources together, to execute, and to get away or not get away if you want to let somebody be a fall guy, this level of coordination in a society where so much of what's being done is monitored is very hard to believe in. And again, with my background in technology, I'm clear that there's so many levels where someone have to have some either collaboration or someone who's able to allow for the movement of these funds, movement of these people, as well as resources to actually murder a head of state as if it was, just a lone gunman or a few crazed Colombian people. With that being said, I wanted to bring on, and if you could stay a little longer, Brother Rob, I wanted to bring in Brother Trésor, who's been living in South Africa for, like I said, almost 30 years. Currently, I believe we're in Congo, and there's been another former head of state, Jacob Zuma, who's in prison what would you say are some of the things that are going on? What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, I know everything that's going on because obviously the media tells us this is what's going on. But also have people on the ground that are obviously giving us different information from what we're hearing from the media. So President Zuma was arrested about a week ago for failing to appear in the state capture inquiry. Keep in mind, he's not the only person that's refused to appear. There's been other people that obviously said, I'm not going to come to the inquiry. So the fact that he was arrested, the main issue is that why was he the only one that was prosecuted for not coming to the inquiry? Obviously, that led to initially was a peaceful protest for the release of Zuma, and it led to rioting, damaging of goods, burning of trucks, blocking the roads, and obviously attacking foreigners as well, and burning of foreign businesses and stuff like that. But this is sort of a usual thing that we have on an annual basis, as I've discussed with Sinclair before. Every year we sort of have a title on why we do what we do. I mean, this year it happens that it's under Zuma must be released that we see such incidents, but it's always it's an annual event, and that's why I strongly believe there's a third hand in this. It's not just black brothers and sisters waking up one morning in June or July or August, whatever it is, and say, today is the day we're going to attack other foreign brothers, or today is the day we're going to burn other foreign-owned business and stuff like that. So I honestly believe there's a third hand involved. And it always has a title that seems like it has nothing to do with what's going to happen, but it always leads to that. So initially, when it starts, we are always relaxed, thinking that, okay, something else, it's nothing to do with what we think would happen. And then it leads to the killing of foreigners, the burning of businesses, the rioting, all that. So what the request right now is that Zuma must be released. And I don't see that happening. So that obviously leads to the next question. What then happens? Because the masses are on the ground. The masses are on the streets. They've said that they will not go back home until the request is met. And I do not see the government giving in to that request. So I think we're just sitting here waiting and hoping for the best. But it is quite serious. And like I said to Sinclair earlier on, this is probably the most serious it's been. I think the first official xenophobic attack was recorded in 2008. And since then, we've had sort of incidents every year. But I think this is the most serious because this is not an isolated incident. This is literally happening throughout the whole country. We have guys, it's happening in Soweto, the township. We have it happening in Durban, it's happening in Centurion, it's happening in downtown Joburg, it's happening in GP.
Is your family? How is your family doing? That's I should have asked about that.
So my family is okay. Obviously they don't have freedom of movement, but where we are located, it's we amongst the what you call the elite. So we are in a white neighborhood. So no one has access to us, but that doesn't mean we obviously can't move around as well. So we are limited to the house only. We can't go into the main highway. Because there's roadblocks, you can't go into to supermarkets, so you are limited. Yes, we are safe, but we are limited. But then my brothers and sisters that are obviously in these communities, it's happening behind the back door, So as much as I'm safe, I'm not at peace with the fact that, the next person is not, So we might experience it from a distance, but it's happening in some people's back door, front door, and it's serious. It's definitely very serious.
I wanted to, and this is me taking a little liberty, and Brother Ralph, I think sometimes when we're having these conversations, again, we look at our experiences, Black people of African descent in isolation when there's a global thing. Even when we talk about Pan-Africanism, there was a Pan-Europeanism that went around the world kidnapping, killing, and stealing. So, when we talk about this issue of Black leaders being either incarcerated after they leave, and the vilification of Black leadership, how it's always seems like we don't see the same energy focused on European leadership, but for some reason there's a vilification of the big Black boogeyman. Like somehow maybe someone needs to come back and take care of us and caretake. But I remember when Aristide was kidnapped, and taken from Haiti to I want to say it was the Congo, not the DRC, but the other Congo. And I'm just saying,
South Africa.
So can you share just a little bit of that history with Haiti? How this, we think some of these things are not connected, but there's really some interesting connections there. Can you relate that at all to what happened? Because our audience doesn't even know that this was. When you say it, they're not going to believe it actually happened.
Well, it's very interesting because what we are living, it's neo-colonialism, and it's really the same thing. And we think we're free, but really not. At least the freedom is what they choose to allow us, where we can function. And what Trésor is living in South Africa, we're living the same thing here. We're restricted to our homes. We can't move around. We can't even go out to the supermarket. It's not that different right now, at least as you're feeling. But it seems to be replicated in many African countries. In Haiti, which is still, it's Africa. At least that's what we think. And the kidnapping of Aristide was very interesting. But to explain that, it also took a military force to bring Aristide back, which was his mistake. So it tells you they bring a president back to a country and they take him out. It's almost like it's so good that they delivered and they took it out. So every time those things happen, you realize very clearly nothing that is happening we're really in control of. We're really not. South Africa, and as you said, there is a hand. There's someone somewhere.
It's 11 o'clock.
There's a Damocles sword, and there's a hand. There's a puppeteer pulling strings, and this string is all throughout African countries. As Skinner, you're very correct. There are many corrupt governments, presidents throughout Europe and the United States. They've experienced that also, but no one's ever been arrested. So I choose to not encourage any accusations of any presidents that are black, because I know it's. I'm not saying that we're good when I say we're the best people. What I'm saying, there's something behind it, and we need to find out what really is. Why is it that every president that comes to power from African countries suddenly is corrupt, suddenly gets arrested, and we don't hear it elsewhere? Yes, there is a move to this day that they've never forgiven us for requesting one thing, which is freedom and equality, which to this day we don't have in the United States. You can see that, and Haiti's no different. South Africa's not. The big move with President Mandela, what he did, was a big thing, but it's clear, it's obvious to all of us there are strings being pulled, and we're not free yet. And it's a continuing movement. We need to strive to become freer, and the only way we're going to do it is what you're doing, and I compliment that, is to bring people to be better informed, to know. Because I've heard many people say, Haiti's poor, Haitians, not really knowing the richness, the contribution to humanity, and the value of what Haiti has done. Well, don't forget, it wasn't Haitians that did the revolution. It was Africans. It was in Haiti yet. So it only became Haiti after. It was Africans that did the greatest revolution. And the thing is, the funny thing is, I hear often in movies, the big thing about Spartacus, the great slave revolt, it was a failed slave revolt. Haiti succeeded. You don't hear about it. We succeeded. And the whole thing is that I want to say this is very important. There is no country in the history of in documented history that has ever developed or spotted by itself. Going back to Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Europe, and the United States, it always took another country to help develop this new one, and this one moves on further. Haiti is the only country, not only first country, it's the same thing in Africa, that had to do by themselves, and not only fend for themselves, had to fight against the whole world. And of course, the consequences are horrific. A small country fighting the whole world. Thomas Jefferson did not want Haiti to be independent. There were issues, and African countries are going through the same thing. They get their independence, but they're not being supported. They're not being helped. They have to fight for themselves and face this whole army of neocolonialism that is controlling your money. The French, the French are controlling this. The Americans are controlling that, and on. So it is a whole. I believe it is a whole planetary structure that was set in place that we dared to destroy, which was the slave trade. The triangular trade was the most profitable thing. People need to remember, before the triangular trade, a city in France was no different than a city in Africa. it was really the triangular trade that kind of catapulted them into what they call the Renaissance, which is the whole thing you learn in school, the Renaissance. But the Renaissance actually rested on our blood and our suffering. We gave them enough money to do this Renaissance. So to me, Renaissance is not something, it's not a moment in history that I revere.
I mean, I think what we're seeing now is just the tip on the iceberg, because I think there's something bigger coming from this.
We will never surrender. We'll never give up. We'll never give in. And I think that spirit is the part of it that sometimes gets missed. When you look at the gladiator in the ring, you know, he might be bloodied and dirty, but he's been in there swinging. And I think we're those people, no matter what happens, we'll never lose ultimately, because we'll never surrender. And in many ways, this what we're going through is unsustainable. This wickedness, this diabolical thing is on the wrong side of history, nature, God, whatever, you know, we see it. I think it's, again, the spirit of just listening to you brothers in your different locations talking about what's happening and with the clarity is important. So I just want to thank you all for joining us on this, and we can't let this be the last time that we have these conversations and put this work together. But I just want to say thank you to you all, and with that, we're going to sign off. I am because we are, and God bless.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.